Hey, what's up, guys? Bradley here. Welcome to Air Channel. So I got an email last night from a gal who asked me why I left the Mormon Church and why I became an atheist. And it was kind of a lengthy conversation. She told me I should read my scriptures and pray about it, and we went back and forth. So I thought I'd make a video about it. So this is why I left the Mormon Church. Um, when I was about 10, I kind of started to see some flaws in the church. I was told to give a testimony, bear a testimony. It's something that Mormons do. And you get in front of the entire congregation and you tell them how much you love the church, believe in the church, you know that that church is true, and how thankful you are to be a part of it, and yada, yada, yada. I was pressured into doing this, and I told by my family and the people at the church. And I told the bishop that I didn't have a testimony. And they told me to pray and pray about it. So I did. And they said I would have a feeling that I know it's true. Well, I never had that feeling. So when it was came time to that Sunday to bear my testimony, I told the bishop that I didn't have a testimony. And he told me to just bear my testimony anyway, and then I would gain one. And so I told him, well, isn't that a lie? And he pinched my shoulder and he said, it's not a lie. And I could clearly see that it was a lie. That was a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly what he said, but something along those lines, that it's not a lie. It's truth building or something like that. So that's when I really kind of started to question that, and seeing little tiny kids, 5 years old, bearing their testimony that they know this church is true and know things that a 5 year old couldn't possibly know, that no one really could know, because there's no evidence or proof of a God at all whatsoever anywhere that you look. The only proof that anyone has of a God is that they have a feeling that it is. Muslims will say that, Christians will say that, and every other religious group pretty much will, that's what they base it on, or pseudoscience or some other kind of garbage. Um, the next thing that happened, I really got into dinosaurs when I was 12 or something, and I asked the question to my uncle, who was a big part of the church his whole life, and or most of his life, and he told me that I'd asked him, if the Earth is only 6,000 years old, where did dinosaurs come from? Because Mormons are young Earth creationists. They believe that the Earth is only 6,000 years old or so. And what he told me was that dinosaurs came from another planet that were on that planet that got destroyed when God created this planet. And I don't know where he came up with that, but that was his reasoning for where dinosaurs came from. Um, then I really started to question the church. I grew up really strong Mormon, extremely strict Mormon mother. We prayed morning, noon, and night. We lived about 10 miles from town, outside of town on a little farm. So we would have to drive to the grocery store to go about 10 miles. She would say a prayer every single time we went to the town. Anything, you lose the keys, you say a prayer. All we did was pray and read the Book of Mormon. I never really read the Bible growing up. And the next thing was baptisms for the dead. I went and did baptisms for the dead when I was 12 and became an elder. And as an elder at 12 years old, I held more authority than any of the grown women in the church. The women hold no authority whatsoever in the Mormon church. So the baptisms for the dead was pretty much the last straw. We went to their temple, which is an extremely creepy building. with all these symbols all over it in Utah, Salt Lake City. I grew up about 2 hours north of Salt Lake City, and it creeped me out doing those baptisms for the dead. It gave me goosebumps. It was creepy. They were dunking us kids under the water and saying these dead people's names. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it was complete bullshit. These people need to be baptized so that they can get into heaven. Well, humans have only kept records for what, maybe 1,000 years. If you're lucky, you could go back and do genealogy 1,000 years, maybe two, and find some genealogy, maybe 2,000 at the most. So what about all those millions of people that lived before then? Doing baptisms for every person that's ever lived is impossible. We don't have the records for Chinese people. We don't have the records for people who lived a million years ago. Or I guess people have only been around for maybe 100 to 200,000 years, depending on what scientists you may ask, but somewhere along there. What about all those people? So, yeah, in my mind, I completely left the church when I was about 14-ish, probably. This caused a lot of problems in my family. I was ostracized by my family. I was extremely bullied by the other kids in the Mormon church. I was never invited to parties or included in anything, and bullied quite well, always. Because my dad wasn't Mormon, so we were like a mixed family. We were one of the only families. There were about 3 families in my town that were not Mormon. And ours was one of them because my dad was not Mormon, so we weren't technically the good Mormon family. And so that's when I left the Mormon church. My mom died when I was 18, and the only thing, she left me a 1-page letter, and I'd been out of the church mentally for years by this time. I was 18, 4 or 5 years I'd mentally been out, done with the church completely. And the only thing the letter said was that I needed to go on a mission and pay my tithing. It's this short 1-page letter, and that was all she cared about. It felt so empty, and I despise the church. It's a horrible, evil organization. I didn't become atheist till I was in my 20s. Probably it took a long time to deprogram. Even though I left the church, I hadn't given up on the idea of God until I was probably in my early 20s. And that's when I first read the Bible, actually. Someone had given me a really expensive leather-bound Bible. And I opened it up and started reading it. And the more I read, the more I thought that this was complete bullshit. Scientifically and in every other way. I mean, Abraham cutting up his junk and then almost murdering his kid, a worldwide flood, all this stuff was complete bullshit. And I've always been into science. I love science, and there's no science to back up the Bible one bit, any of it, none of it. It's all horseshit. And so that's when I really became an atheist. I searched through other religions and found that they were all pretty much the same, complete bullshit. You have to believe everything on faith. I don't have any faith. I only believe what I can see. And so once I left the church, my family pressured me to go on a mission, and when they realized that that wasn't going to happen, and I left the church, I got married, started a family, they completely cut me out of their lives, 100%. I wasn't invited to my brother's wedding. I didn't go on vacations with them. They went on family vacations to Hawaii and other places every year. I wasn't invited. I didn't get Christmas cards. I didn't get phone calls. They didn't talk to me for almost 20 years. because I wasn't Mormon. And how fucked up is that? I had lived on the street for 4 years, and they didn't even know that I was homeless. So, yeah, that's how I became an atheist. And there wasn't much recovery in this video, but I just wanted to tell you guys my story on how I became an atheist. And through a lot of research and everything else, I am 100% positive that there is no God. It makes no sense whatsoever by any of the evidence that you can see in the natural world. And so that's my story on how I became an atheist, and I'm making this page because, or this channel, because what I'm seeing in the recovery community is these Christian churches and Christians preying on some of the most vulnerable people in our society, drug addicts. When you're a drug addict and you hit your lowest point, that's when they come in and they prey on you, and it destroys these people's lives. They don't get treatment. A lot of them die. They're told to believe in a God to remove a disease, and that is complete horseshit. I don't care who you are. That is bullshit. That will not work. That will get you killed. So yeah, a big struggle with being in recovery and trying to get treatment is religion. It's a brain disease, and so it's a very complex disease. There hasn't been much progress made, except in maybe the last decade. There's been a lot of progress made scientifically, and so there are alternatives. And I get the story of Bill and Bob, and they created AA, and it's probably saved a lot of lives, and that's great. But it only saves people that can believe in a God. And even then, I don't think that's what saves them. There are some components